Teddy bear's the favourite. He's got boot button eyes. Okay, the later teddy bears start having two colour glass eyes. This is early because he's got boot button eyes. Okay. If you look at his back, he's got a little hump. Yes. And somewhere in here, it doesn't work now, but somewhere inside his stomach is a growler. Yeah. Despite his play-worn condition, which is a nice word, I think it describes what he is quite nicely, play-worn, he is still very valuable. And if you went to a shop today to actually purchase this, it would probably cost you about £800 or £900, which I think is quite a lot of money when you consider that he, has got all these ongoing repairs.
Yeah. What do you think, German?
I'm puzzled, like you. I don't know. I think it's wonderful.
He's great.
He's great fun, isn't he? Particularly from the front with his legs.
His face.
His bulgy eyes.
He looks like that dog on Tom and Jerry, doesn't he? What's his name? Is it Butch or something? What is his name? He's great. He's a terrific dog. Yes, he's a tobacco jar, poor soul. In a late Majolica colours, 1880, and well, we're not sure where he's from, but he's got a good pedigree, and he's a handsome chap. And value, I don't know, he's quite amusing. Got to be £100. But I like him. Good boy.
And daughter.
No, I didn't know that.
Seems an odd thing to do, to model your daughter in the nude and then sell hundreds and, if not thousands, of glass models of her. The important thing to remember here is that we're looking at a piece of moulded glass. This is not cut glass. It's moulded in a machine press, and then it's finished and trimmed off by hand. But what a clever design. I mean, here it is. It sits on this base. Now, this base is bronze, by the way. It's been polished up, but it is bronze. You can see the sort of verdigris coming through. And the light passing through it it's got an ethereal quality to it. It sort of comes alive. I'm expecting her to do a dance of the Seven Veils any minute. You know what I mean? A lot of people, or one or two people like me think, I've got a figure like that, but mine doesn't have these slits underneath the arm. Well, he did do another figure called Thais, which is entirely enclosed. The drapes fall right fully underneath the arm. It's unusual for it to have its base. These seem to be multi-purpose bases that they use for both figures, but it is nice when you've got an original base. And again, beware, because there are modern bases on the market. But I'm very happy with this base.
Oh, good.
Very happy indeed with it. I would be quite happy to see that figure make somewhere in the region of £6,000 to £7,000 at auction.
It's painted on oak. What about it? It was made around 1760. It's veneered in mahogany. The base...
There's another make which is particularly known for some of its circus figures, and that's a make called Charbons. And quite a lot of the other figures here are by that particular make. I suppose that this piece here really must be the most exciting. Not only does it look the most interesting, it actually is the most interesting. Collectors are fascinated by that particular toy, and that on its own would be worth perhaps a couple of £100.
Would it?
Yes, it would, in that sort of condition, just that one piece. And in fact, but overall, I mean, the fact that you've got so many of these different acts and that they're in, on the whole, very good condition, I think that one has to be looking at perhaps 800 or perhaps as much as £1,000 for everything to have here. So I think you did very well not to let your children wreck it.
Well, when you opened these out, brought them out, I thought, hello, we've got another Clarice Cliff service here. But in fact, if we turn it over and look at the mark on it, you see that it's a Graves pottery, Stoke-on-Trent, and these were made about 1930. They're very interesting because they were actually, as you can see, sort of Art Deco pieces, very much Art Deco, but Art Deco of the Jazz Age, you know, the Charleston, and inspired these things by fine art, by Picasso and people like that. The designer of these was not Clarice Cliff, but another lady. This was, of course, Susie Cooper. And when she designed these, she was working for A.E. Gray. She'd been recommended to him by the great Gordon Forsyth, who was the principal of the School of Art at Burslem. And he'd recommended her when she was in her early 20s. And she designed these just before 1930. She left shortly after that and set up on her own, and from 1930-31 onwards, until she retired a few years ago, she was one of the greatest 20th century ceramic designers of all time, in effect. But these were amongst her earliest designs, and they're really very, very lively and vibrant and striking. And one of the interesting things about them is that these were painted by girls. Gordon Forsyth trained girls at the School of Art to paint on pottery, and it may well be that somebody of 14, 15 or 16 painted these. It's quite possible that the mark there is of the painters, but that lady watching the programme today could actually say, I painted that in 1930 or whenever it was. The other thing which is particularly remarkable about them, and why I'm very excited about them in a sense, is that you've got spoons with them.
Yes.
And you kept all 6 spoons.
Yes.
And the exciting thing about the spoons is when we turn them over, they too are decorated as the pottery. Susie Cooper is not as esteemed at the moment as Clarice Clip, but she is, in my view, an infinitely better designer. And early works of hers like this, I would have thought if this was sent to auction tomorrow, as it were, it would fetch at least £500, I would have thought.
Oh, lovely.
It might seem very strange, but you know, 10 years ago, this sort of clock might very likely have been thrown away. And I have
11 miles.
11 miles, so we're talking local today in every sense.
Yes.
But I think the thing that amazes me about Mauchline Ware is the sheer variety of the objects that they produced. Now, most of the objects we've got here were produced during the 19th century. The wood involved is probably sycamore in most places, am I right?
Yes.
Straightforward black and white prints. These are Scottish views. They did, of course, they made views for all over the country. I remember years ago, quite honestly, you could pick up a box such as this for 20, 25 pounds. But I'm afraid those days are long gone. I think today you'd probably have to part with a minimum of 80 pounds for a box such as that. So, and you collect tea caddies?
Yes.
Fantastic. It's another nice one.
Fitted out in their kilts, complete with the Cameron tartan, their scarlet tunics, and their white Foreign Service helmets. Now, these soldiers are really a classic example of childhood toys which become for some people afterwards an adult obsession. There are many collectors of these. These particular soldiers were produced by Britain in a long period between 1893 and 1966. And virtually every regiment in the British Army was depicted in these models. The boxes originally sold for a shilling a time at the beginning of the century, but now they can fetch hundreds of pounds, which led one top auctioneer to say that when it comes to investment, Britain's soldiers have done better than many other areas of antiques. Now, as always, their value is dependent on age, rarity, and condition, and a connoisseur looking at these would be able to tell by the quality of the modelling and the painting that these were produced in the 1950s to an original model produced by Britons in 1901. Their condition, as you can see, is very good, and another important point is that they're still with their original box. And so, to the question, how much would such a set of soldiers fetch at auction today? Now, to help you, have a look at a copy of next week's Radio Times, which is published on Tuesday. That gives more details of the competition and also a various selection of possible answers to that question. And then your answers need to be in the post by Saturday at the latest, and addressed, incidentally, please, to the Radio Times, not to the Antiques Roadshow. And if you do all that, you'll stand a chance of winning quite a worthwhile Antiques voucher. So, the answer to this week's question next week, and of course, I'll also be presenting another Radio Times competition object. Well, that really is it from Ayrshire now. Next week, we're on the road again. We're going south this time to Wiltshire, and I very much hope that you'll join us then. So until then, from all of us here on the west coast of Scotland, goodbye.
The Antiques Roadshow regrets that it cannot give valuations by post.